Hey, friend, welcome back to the Earn Your Title podcast. My name is Danny Dumas, and today I'm excited because we're going to be talking about something that is very important. In life, you think about really important decisions, and you think about really important financial decisions. And a lot of times when I think of like, what's your biggest purchase, it's your house. But when I think about the biggest financial decision you're going to make, it's probably what career you're going to go into. And in today's day and age, in order to get a career, you probably have to get an education. And to get an education, you have to pay for it. And so I have my friend Lee on from College Shark, and she's going to help us figure out, how to get to college, what's the right college to go to. And we're actually going to do it in reference to my son, Levi, who's going to be a senior. So Lee, before we get started with that, could you introduce yourself and kind of tell us what you do?
Yes, of course. Hi, everybody. My name is Lee Norwood, and I'm an independent educational consultant. What does that mean? It means people typically pay me to guide them and their student through the college application process, and we try to base it on fit. So is that fit academic? Is that fit social, geographical? And what's the most important to me is financial. I personally don't think anyone should pay full price for college. So I'm limited in how many one-on-one kids I can help. So we've created a do-it-yourself program called collegesharks.com. But today, I'm super excited to talk about Levi because you're right in my wheelhouse. First of all, I'm going to tell everybody that if they want to know when to start the college process, I'm going to tell you probably yesterday. I love getting kids the summer after sophomore year because, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube,
Right.
Help guide them making some decisions. But we've got Levi right on the cusp of going into senior year, and that is go time. So I am really excited to help you. And I've been doing this for about 7 years. I love it. And I think I save family relationships because people don't argue. I deal with facts.
That's awesome. So I'll present to you Levi's conundrum. He is a okay student. He's middle of the road. He's taking a college class this summer to help get his GPA up. He's going to a local community college. He currently doesn't know what he wants to do. He's a creative person. He's into, at our church, he helps with social media and taking pictures. So I feel like it's probably something along those lines. He doesn't probably want to work in an office and do the same thing every day, but he just doesn't know what to do next. And I'm a big believer in education, but I also believe that, it doesn't necessarily have to be college. How do you help me figure out what's the best method of getting, what's the next thing next fall when he's thinking about college? And I think he'll go to college, but I don't want to spend a lot of money if he doesn't know what it is. So how do you guide someone when they just don't know what to do to figure out what the next, the cheapest way to figure that out?
Okay. There's a lot to unpack there. First of all, I'll tell you that C's get degrees, so it's fine that he's an okay student. There's a place for everybody. We've got over 3,000 four-year universities.
Right.
I'm a huge fan of college, but my son wasn't, so he joined the Marine Corps. So I have one student in my family, my daughter, who, went to undergrad at NC State, go Wolfpack, and then graduate school at NYU and then over to France. So I've got this explosion of, wow, take advantage of learning.
Right.
And then I've got my son who, equally smart, just as college wasn't for him.
Yeah.
And serving in the military is really his wheelhouse. He likes it. Again, he wants to be outside and do things with his hands. He's a mortarman, so super proud of him. I don't think any 17-year-old knows what they want to be when they grow up. I'm 50-something, and I didn't figure it out until a year ago. So take that pressure off. I often ask kids, why are you going to college? And a lot of times the answer is because that's what we're supposed to do
Right.
next. Their frontal lobe hasn't closed, especially because you have a boy.
Right.
So it's okay that he doesn't know, but he also doesn't know what he doesn't know.
Right.
So what I'm going to share with you is you need to get your son on some local college campuses in August.
Yeah.
He needs to go feel the vibe, see the kids. Don't go when there's nobody on campus. It's boring.
Right.
But kids start coming in August to colleges, and you don't need to travel all over the country, but if you could go to a couple schools that are within 2 or 3 hours of you and just show him some differences, maybe a city school, maybe a school with a lot of green space, maybe a more creative school, then he can come back and I can ask him those questions of, what did you like? Do you want to see palm trees or pine trees when you look out your window? All of those different kinds of things. As far as knowing what he wants to study, there are wonderful exploratory programs where they'd all speak to NC State specifically because I know it inside and out, but these kids live in dorms together for the first 2 years. They meet with their counselor once a week. They are exposed to everything, agriculture, engineering, business classes, while they're getting their basic core credits. And they are meeting with that counselor constantly. So they're figuring out what they want to be, what excites them as they're maturing.
Right. That's logical. For someone going into college, do you think the mindset should be, this is the job I want to get, and then looking at, or maybe not the job's not the right word, but like the industry I want to be in, and then looking at the degree as the secondary thing, like that's going to get me here? Because I know personally, I have some friends that they just got a degree because that's what they're supposed to do, and they didn't think about the investment on the other end. Like, oh, that's cool. You got let's call it a $60,000 degree, but you got it for a $30,000 a year career. How do you see that balance of this is the kind of work I want to do versus this is the kind of education I get?
So I think that's a great question. And there's a lot of things called fit to major. There are interesting tests that your son could take, activities. One is called the Highlands Battery. The other was called a Berkman assessment. That's kind of cool because then they're like, hey, because you said your son was creative, like here's your creativity. Here's how you did on this assessment. And here are some careers that might fit well for you. Here is the bandwidth of pay for those careers. And here are the majors that will get you there. So for someone who's really directed and wants to go in that direction and have a plan and see 4 years out, I think doing one of those strengths assessments is awesome.
Cool.
I also think that everybody changes their major pretty much. And so if you're not sure, I love your big state schools. It's always most likely going to be your least expensive. And big state universities offer incredibly great educations, and they have the bandwidth to have a number of different majors so your student can change their mind and change their major as they mature into what they want to do. But, I think teaching is one of the things that, you spend all this money to get a degree and then you come out with a teaching degree. And if, depending on where you live in the country, you might not be making enough money. I think that's sad and disappointing.
Yeah. I've got some members of my family are teachers. I think the future is for teachers, at least in elementary, would be like the journeyman program, like an electrician, where you don't necessarily start in college. You start at a school as a teacher's aide. And then on the summers, you take summer classes because something has to change, that, I have to spend $80,000, and then to work at a city, which maybe you love doing, but you're only making 40. That's a tough one in the education space for sure.
Yeah. And what do you need a degree to do? Well, some big companies, like I say, the pharmaceutical industry, you just need to have a college degree to even get through to interview, right? So if you think you want to go into some sort of sales at that level, and that is a barrier to entry is getting a degree, then, you can get a business or a marketing degree. If you think you want to be an entrepreneur, you guys always have to remember that Bill Gates, or who was it? Who's the Facebook guy? He got into Harvard.
Yeah.
Right. He got in.
Right.
And then he dropped out.
Right.
So you can't say he didn't need college, because what happened in that incubator space at Harvard turned him into who he is now.
For sure.
I think there's some changes. There's a school called CTech here in North Carolina, super cool school. You end up getting out of high school with an AA degree, an associate's degree, and you can take pathways like construction. So I think it's important for you to do your work and find out what is offered locally and close and around you for those types of things. But what you have to have a degree to be a doctor. You have to have a degree to be an accountant. You have to have degrees to be a lawyer. So political science, there's no better place to get your education than at a college. And you're going to need that if you want to move into politics or anything like that. Right. So I love starting with the end in mind, but I really think it's hard for a 17-year-old to have the end in mind.
No, that's logical. So let's say Levi, he doesn't know what he wants to do, but he wants to explore what he wants to do through the realm of going to college. He's 17, and I've told him that he is welcome to live at my house as long as he wants. I will feed him, provide for him, but he's going to be paying for his own college. That's just, I did that. I don't really have the money to do that for him. So he's aware of that. how do we help him afford it? Like, what is the pathways to getting to a university, or maybe for us in Michigan, they just passed a law this year, or not a law, but so there's funding for 2 years of free community college for the entire state. So he's got that to kind of dip his toes in. But how do we get him to a 4-year, let's call it University of Michigan, for as affordable as possible? What's the pathway towards that?
All right, so there's a few pathways. The 2-year community college pathway is always going to be the least expensive. You just need to make sure that the whole time you're in that 2 years of your community college, you're working with the transfer specialist,
Right.
because you need to be taking classes that are going to transfer to Michigan,
Right.
or to your in-state school. And don't think that because you did 2 years in Michigan for free, California is going to take all those classes.
Right.
So there are little hiccups you just want to watch. But really, that's a great way to gain some maturity, get your basic classes, do that 2-year community college stretch. You're going to miss that freshman year experience.
Right.
If your kid is the kind of kid who you think wants to have that live away from home freshman year experience, make the friends of your life, then that is not going to be your best direction. So then we need to look at your in-state schools. You paid taxes. They're going to have the lowest tuition.
Gotcha.
Whether you live on campus or not, that room and board piece you can mitigate. And then I always tell kids they can be resident assistants, which means you're in charge of a hallway of kids usually 1 year younger than you, and you get your free room and board. So there's lots of ways around it. Let's just take Levi off the table.
Okay.
Let's just say there's a student with a really extremely high grades and really high test scores, or test scores above 1250. I didn't ask you what Levi's were, so we're not comparing him.
Right.
There's a thing called merit aid, and that is a discount off of tuition because a college wants to attract you as a student. So what do you think the number one thing is that a college looks at when they look at your kid's application, Danny?
I have no idea, but I would say probably test scores and community involvement, maybe the top two.
All right. So the first thing they're going to look at is your transcript. What did your high school offer, and what classes did you take? If your high school offers through calculus and you want to go into something, a school like Michigan, you need to have pushed the curriculum. So they want to see, did you take advantage of what your high school offered? Then they look at your unweighted GPA. Your weighted GPA just gives you bragging rights and class rank.
Right.
But in colleges, they're going to level the playing field because the private school down the street might not have the APs that you had, or there might be an IB program, and they're all weighted differently. So they take an unweighted GPA.
Could you explain unweighted GPA?
Yeah. So typically, we grew up A, B, C, D on a 4.0 scale. If you have an honors class, they bump it to a 4.5 scale. And if you have an AP, advanced placement class, that's on a 5.0 scale. So when you're going, oh my gosh, how the heck does somebody get a 4.6?
Right.
How does that work? Well, it's weighted because it's a college level class. At the end of the year of your AP class, you take an AP exam. And that exam, if you get a 4 or 5, sometimes a 3, it's on a scale of 1 to 5, that translates to college credit. So some people are like, oh, it's a racket. I'm not going to pay the money to take the exam. No,
Right.
Pay the money and take the exam, because that $90 might get you 3 credits at Michigan, and 3 credits at Michigan is way more than $90.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's weighted and unweighted, but you're limited by whether your school offers it or not. So colleges need to look at just your flat 4.0. And then testing is back. Test scores went away during COVID because kids couldn't get to places to test. And some schools will be test optional. University of Chicago has been test optional forever, but 70% of their kids that get in still test.
Yeah.
So it shows college readiness. You want to practice for that PSAT. Don't let your kid tell you it's not important. It doesn't matter. It's a benchmark and they should be taking it. It'll also tell them where they have some learning gaps. They need to be through Algebra 2 for the math to really make sense. But so those 3 things don't tell me if your kid's nice or organized or, involved. Those are just what classes did you take and how'd you do.
Right.
After those 3, then we talk about your essay, your personal voice, your leadership in a few activities. Don't run around trying to do 20 things. Do 3 things well, often and long term. Then you've got some teacher recommendations that some schools are looking at. And then you've got your unique differences. Like they need a piccolo player, and guess who plays piccolo? My kid. Boom, that's like a special thing. Or Florida's looking for kids from Michigan this year,
Gotcha.
so that gives you an edge. But if you can get merit aid, it's the largest amount of money off of the cost of tuition you can get anywhere. So don't go chasing $500 scholarships. Kick butt in school, do those 7 things I just told you,
Gotcha.
do them well, present it well in your application, and there's a good chance you're going to get offered a discount off tuition. Does that make sense?
Yeah, very. I've got a question with the essay. And where do you see that going as far as future proofing with AI? Because like all Levi's friends, they all are currently using AI for just about everything. What do you think is going to distinguish? Do you think that's going to go away in the future because they're going to get some amazingly written, essays on how great they did written by AI? Or do you think it's going to be just that they're telling them the things they, like the quality of the writing is probably not going to matter as much as the score or the content? How do you see that?
So that's a great question, and we're right in the middle of it. First of all, AI is a tool just like the World Wide Web was. Right. We're going to deal with it. We're going to move forward, and we're going to maximize it. So we need to meet kids where they are, right? You don't need to write a resume anymore. ChatGPT will write it for you. So we meet them where they are, and we know they're using it as a tool. But it is not personal. It's just like trying to get advice from a computer. They're missing those subtle nuances. So your 17-year-old voice needs to come through. It needs to feel personal. And you're trying to show colleges a number of different things about you. Are you intellectually curious? Do you have a lot of grit? Are you never going to give up? All of those different things through the essay. However, semicolon, continue. Some schools are giving an option for a 3-minute video.
Oh, that's all. Like for Levi, that would be amazing because he'll talk to anybody, anytime, at any moment. And he's good at it.
Right on. So like, are they going to judge you on punctuation and all that? Not as much anymore because they all know that you have Grammarly.
Right.
They're going to run it through an AI detector to make sure. And if it's bullshit,
right.
They're going to smell bullshit.
Yeah.
It's just, we know. I can read an essay and tell if a parent wrote it, especially if there's two spaces after the period. But
right.
We know 17-year-olds write a certain way. Now, 17-year-olds who want to go to Princeton, Yale, and Harvard, you could smell them coming. They're a different kid.
Right.
And they write a certain way. But for the majority of all of our relatively normal, just great kids across the United States, a 17-year-old voice sounds like a 17-year-old voice. And so we're going to smell the difference there.
Let me ask you this, and I have no idea if this is a thing. Is there any place for actual in-person trying to make contact with someone from the college you want to go to, like actually old school networking where I went for the tour and I asked to speak to the admissions person and just physically, old school politician, press the flesh and, hey, I'm Levi, I'm going to submit it. Is there any room for that to actually physically go and do that?
Yeah, 100%. You don't get what you don't ask for.
Gotcha.
Other people who do what I do will give you a different answer. I think you use everything you've got. And if Levi's got a great personality, every school has a rep. Usually the reps for bigger schools are broken down into areas of the country. Their job is to know the high schools in that area. So you're going to want to find the rep for Michigan for whatever school. Let's say he's looking at, going to Ohio State. Oh gosh, that's a bad example.
Yeah, he would never go there. We disown him. I'm just joking.
I know. Gosh,
maybe I'm just kind of joking.
Damn, that's a big rivalry. That's like Auburn and
Alabama. My grandpa played football for Auburn.
Let's say he wants to go to Alabama.
Yeah, my grandpa played football for Alabama. He couldn't go, or for Auburn. He couldn't go to Alabama either.
Okay, damn. Well, anyway, let's say he's going to go to Elon in North Carolina, small school. That's where I went. You can't say anything bad. There's a rep for Michigan. And that rep is who we want Eli to reach out to if he has any questions. Not ones that he can find on the website, but questions, some of the questions like you're asking. It's called demonstrating interest. Some big schools don't have the bandwidth to check on that. But if you go to a tour, you need to sign in. That shows you're demonstrating interest. I'm going to pick a kid who's visited and asked me questions over a kid who maybe look more qualified because in the business realm of that, the kid who's been there knows they love it. So I get a better chance of a yes. And that's called yield protection. So I also always encourage, and specifically at private schools, that you ask to meet maybe a teacher or sit in on a class that you're interested in or have an interview. Some schools will let you have interviews, some won't, but you get nothing if you don't try.
Awesome. So that's the merit-based scholarship. Well, I had one question. I reached out to my social media, and actually I work at a college. I work at a community college. I teach at the fire academy. So it's I'm not necessarily in the academic space, people taking normal classes, but the secretary, I asked her, I'm like, what are people asking? When it comes to funding, there's grants, scholarships. There was one more, grant scholarships and merit aid. Could you break down the difference between that and, how those apply to each student?
100%. So merit aid is the merit that you bring to the table. You show that through the college application. You can go on any site, go into the admissions portal and write in merit aid. Some schools have a grid. If you get in, you have this grade and this test score, we give you this much money. Other schools, it's way more esoteric. That's merit aid. That's bigger money. Grants and things like that. The proxy for that is the FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid. You're going to want to fill that out. Don't feel like you're giving away your information. They already know everything about it.
They do.
You're going to fill that out. It typically opens in October. You're going to get a number. So you connect it right to your tax returns. So it's much easier to fill out. Now they've made it a lot shorter, and you'll get a student aid index back. That student aid index, the government looks at it and decides if you're Pell eligible or not. So Pell eligibility is a certain income level. I think it's about $7,000. If you're Pell eligible, that means you have a high level of need. And a school like Harvard's if you can get in, is going to cover the majority of your tuition because they meet 100% of need. So, but if you're not Pell eligible, you still have that number, that student aid index. So here's an example, and don't hold me to the specifics, but if your student aid index is, say, 30,000, and you're like, man, I can't afford 30,000. Well, so what? That's what the government says you can afford. And you want to go to a school that's 40,000, that gap is $10,000, and different schools cover different percentages of that gap. And that's called need-based aid. And that can come in the form of grants or scholarships. If you fill out the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid for your student, they can also potentially be eligible for 2 loans in their name. This just changed.
Right.
So we're talking right now in July of 2025. Some things are just changing, but prior to yesterday.
Right. The big beautiful bill is unknown as we speak.
Yeah, $5,500.
Okay.
One of them subsidized, one of them's not, which means one of them the government pays the interest, the other one they don't. But these are low interest loans that your student takes out in their name.
Okay.
Thank you so much for doing the FAFSA. Here's $5,500. Kids can cover that in the summer. Go work your butt off. Now you're building credit. And then there's also work study. The kid still gets paid, but the government subsidizes the salaries. So those are always the best jobs on campus. That makes sense?
Yeah. So let me just make sure I'll put it in my words. FAFSA is something me and Levi will fill out in October of this year for 2026 going into college, correct?
Yep. And you're going to use 2024 income.
Okay. So these are prior. That makes sense. My last tax return. Based on the number they give me, when they give me a number, they're saying, we think you can pay for $30,000 worth of education. If I was below the poverty level, number would probably be 0. Is that safe to say?
Yeah. Or it might be 5,000.
Okay. Something. And then when I apply to a college, let's call it University of Michigan, and they're saying yearly it's $40,000. I should be able to pay for 30, but there's that 10 that's in the middle where I'd be eligible for grants, scholarships, and other things. That's how they determine need for that.
That's where you're going to be qualified for need-based aid.
Okay, need-based aid.
Like I know the University of Maryland covers 57% of a gap. I could look up and tell you it's all public information. It's just that you got to go find it.
Gotcha.
And I have it in a chart.
Is there?
But no, most of the highly selective schools, meaning Ivy or bust, they meet 100% of aid. So I always say in America, if you're broke and brilliant, you're in the best place you can be. If you're rich and can afford it, you're in the second best place you can be. And if you're middle class, like most of us, you're screwed.
Where,
I mean,
when
they
filling
just don't
out
make it.
the FAFSA, can you do it better? Like, or is it just a straightforward numbers? Like, these are the numbers. Like, for instance, like, I don't know, do demographics play into it? My wife is Chilean. My kids have dual citizenship. Like, does that go into, minority status or things along those lines? Can you do it wrong? Like, is it better to, like, what's on
You
that
can't do
form?
the FAFSA wrong.
Okay. It's very straightforward. Just answer the
They
questions.
took all ethnicity out of the application.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask your son when he writes his essay, somewhere in there, he needs to share that
Gotcha.
somehow.
Okay.
Because they can't unhear it. But there's no more boxes to check. Now, first generation is different.
Okay.
And if you went to community college, but not a 4-year university, your kid is still considered first generation. Those kids, they look at a little bit different because they understand that they're not coming from a knowledge base of, years and years of family who went to college.
Right. So, like, for my son, because I went to community college, he would still qualify as first generation to go to a 4-year university.
I would say,
My
I'm going to say 90%
parents
of
went
the
to
time.
university, but they didn't graduate. So that's
That's fine too.
Gotcha. Awesome.
You want to read the fine print because
right.
somebody listening will find the one school that's not true about. But yes, your student is a first gen. You need to make sure that that's clear. There are questions on it's called the common application. It's the one main application most kids fill out that then goes to every school where they're applying for the most part.
I had someone reach out with a question. Is there a time where applying to college is free, like certain parts of the year? Because I know sometimes there's application fees to actually apply to the college. I'm assuming that's a weeding out process. Is there certain times where you don't have to pay an application fee, or it would be beneficial to maybe, apply to your top 10 colleges, but not have to pay $100 per application?
I think that's a great reason to call your admissions rep at each school. They do have things called fee waivers. Sometimes because you went and visited, they'll give you a fee waiver.
Okay.
Sometimes because you're Pell eligible, you'll get a fee waiver. But those other key times when you can apply, usually those are schools that have rolling admissions, but that's a school by school thing and a great reason to call your admissions rep.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So it's not a standard across the board, but each college probably has some mechanism so you don't have to pay for an application process.
They usually do, and whether or not you qualify for that is a different story.
Gotcha. So we've talked about merit-based aid. We've talked about filling out your FAFSA financial aid. What is your take on like the scholarship route? Because I subscribe to a scholarship website. I don't remember what it was, and probably weekly. They're just posting stuff, and some of them are very small and big. What is your take on doing that, on filling out this application so that, my kid can get the most amount of, quote unquote, free money?
I think that there's a lot of different stances on this, and I'm going to suggest that y'all go to my YouTube channel called @CollegeSharks on YouTube, because I meet with a guy who runs a scholarship website, and we have a discussion, and we agree and disagree on different things, and that's just there for you to go and watch. I'll send it to you. Maybe you could put it in the show notes.
Yeah, for sure.
Personally, I know the biggest amount of money you'll ever get towards the cost of tuition is going to be merit aid. So that's going to be putting the right schools on your list and putting out a kick-ass application and doing well on your test scores and GPA.
Gotcha.
That's where you're going to get tens of thousands, right? You're going to get 500 here, 200 there through scholarships. That is a great use of time once you've figured out where the heck you want to go and you've put your best foot forward. That's when I don't do outside scholarships with kids because I say the juice isn't worth the squeeze because I'm getting a lot of more juice. But after that, go and try them. But you have to be careful. Some sites are lumping scholarships together, and just make sure you're on the right sites.
Right.
I like Going Mary, and I like Dave, the scholarship guy. That's who I do my talk with.
You said Dave, the scholarship guy?
It's not about use of your time. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Other places are grabbing your info and selling it and not doing their due diligence. Also, every one of you has a state government, and your I don't know if they're congressmen, but senators that are in your local government, they all have some money. So call their office, ask them for their application, and you can get, $500 to $2,000 in Maryland. So that's good money.
Yeah.
And that's usually if you go to an in-state school, they're trying to support you. So there, it just saved you $2,000 a year probably.
That's awesome. Where I've got a question. So, like, say we'll go back to Levi. Say he does 2 years of community college that he doesn't have to pay for. How would merit-based scholarship affect him, on his third year when he's transferring to a university that's going to cost him? Because, is it still only his high school GPA, or does the 2 years of college, where does merit go with that when you've done 2 years of college? Now you're trying to get into the bigger universities.
Yeah, you'll have an application that you have to fill out, and they'll still look at that.
They'll still look at high school?
No, they'll look at whatever they're asking you in their transfer application. They will also consider you for merit aid.
Gotcha. So say you're a C student in high school, but you got to college and you liked what you're studying, so you actually did better. That could be a way to get merit-based aid, where maybe coming out of high school, it wasn't going to happen for you. You just couldn't get the grades up to where they needed to be. You could kill it at community college and maybe, get a bigger number going into a university.
And you're probably going to get more departmental scholarships at that point, right? Because you've done your gen ed.
Right.
So you did some great research and did some great stuff during community college. And so, yeah, that physics degree comes with these departmental scholarships that you can apply for because you're a little further down the road there. But yes.
Gotcha. That's encouraging. Let me ask you some of the questions that I can't remember off the top of my head. Maybe one was also discuss what a FERPA is, and that the students are going to have in charge of handling their own business when they're at school. What's FERPA? Do you know?
Awesome.
Is that a good question?
So
I don't know what FERPA
HIPAA
is. So
I don't know exactly what it stands for. Y'all can Google that. But the bottom line is it's your rights for other people to see your stuff after you're 18. So I always tell my kids, waive your FERPA rights on your teacher recs, because that means you're willing to have them sent without you reading them, which then the college thinks, okay, good, this is a more realistic. Your other FERPA and HIPAA is going to come later. Listen, whether you pay for Levi or not, right, I want you to have access to his grades. When parents tell me, oh, they didn't give me access to my portal, that's crap.
Yeah.
You're their support system. But your 18-year-old needs to give you that access. Right. So that's a FERPA thing. And then as soon as they're 18, if they go to the hospital, you can't help them. So that's HIPAA. And you need to have some legal forms filled out. I send all my people, we get a discount from just put in College Sharks, Mama Bear legal forms.
Okay.
Because, my 24-year-old just went to the hospital in New York. And the first thing I said was, before you get loopy and go into surgery, you need to make sure I am on your notification list, because now you're an adult and I can't help you if I'm just calling. So
yeah, no, that makes sense.
It's your rights.
Do you have a way to help parents and kids to determine whether in-state, out-of-state, on campus, off campus? Is there a matrix that of thought process to go through, just to try to? Is it worth it to go out of state because this school is known for this, but it's going to cost me an extra $10,000? How do you help a parent and a child work through that?
So when you work with me one-on-one, I have software that pulls all of that data. They're pulling it from something called the Common Data Set. So can you do it alone? Absolutely. You just have to do your own digging. You need to go and look at that for yourself. Every website discloses all of that information, and you can go to the Common Data Set, especially if you're a data head, and figure it out. If not, it's a lot of numbers. But they'll share with you tuition, room and board, percent, like number, average merit aid given, and the percentage of kids it's given to. All of that is just in my software that I use, and you might be able to use it. Look at Naviance, whatever your school uses, Naviance, Score, Maya Learning. Kids forget to tell their parents that the high school has that. It's in there.
Gotcha.
Because you've got to pick your colleges so your teachers know where to send the recommendations.
Okay.
So use what your high school system is.
Okay. One other question is, which degrees have a higher job landing and income success rate? So are you seeing trends right now in college where people are going to college in certain areas and they're coming out with better jobs?
Yeah.
Where's that going?
Computer science, engineering, medical, anything with math. I tell my kids who like math, if you don't know what you want to do, major in math. You win all day long. There's a guy on TikTok I reposted. He actually breaks it down even more, because I'm just working with the kids when they're 17. So I know they're going to change their mind as they go. But absolutely, anything in finance, you're going to do better.
That's fair.
Engineering.
One question, I thought this was good from Lena. How do divorced parents affect the FAFSA filing?
Well, Lena, 5 or 6 years ago, you could have shown one person's income, right? But if you've got a couple that's divorced, the rules have just changed. Whoever financially supports the student the most, that's who fills out the FAFSA. And if you're remarried, that's you and your person together, that you are that family. So the FAFSA is always filled out from the point of view of the student. Remember that. You don't want them to think your student makes $60,000 a year. So make sure you're looking at it from the right point of view. But divorce, it used to be a great way to pay less for college, and they've kind of squashed that.
Gotcha. One last question is, so kind of we're summarizing it up, then I'll let you tell us kind of what the College Sharks will do to help us. But so we've got all the merit we can get, right? And like say for my son, he's going to have to pay for this. So he has come up short on merit-based aid, scholarships. So now he needs extra money. Loans. Could you give us your take on college loans, the best place to get them, the things to worry about, the things to think about? What is your take on college loans?
So sometimes a school will put together a financial package and it looks like they're giving you money and they're not. They're just giving you a Parent Plus loan. Steer clear. They didn't ask for a credit check. They're offering you a Parent Plus loan, and what you don't see is every single time you take a disbursement, they get you with a heavy charge. So you've got all these parents going, oh, we'll figure this out later.
Right.
Don't do that. Home equity loans are sometimes a way to go. You said Levi has to pay on his own. He'll be older then. So hopefully he's developed some credit and he can go to a bank or look online. That's not my expertise.
Okay.
So I don't want to drive you the wrong. I'm just going to tell you Parent Plus loans. Yikes.
Cool. That is fair. Stay away from Parent Plus loans. And, I've got lots of friends, including some family members, that still have loans to be paid off. So, me and my son we've had an active conversation on how could he afford it, working through the summer. Like my hope for him would be if he does the community college route, and he's still up in the air on what that's going to look like, but get some skills inside of community college. So in the summer, you're not making minimum wage, you're making $20 an hour with the skill that's going to get you towards the next level so that you could go to, a university when you wanted to. So we're hoping to do as much as we can debt-free, which is probably everyone's goal, but we'll see how that works out. So you have College Sharks. This is an online, explain to what that is, and then, how me and Levi could get, like what that would look like for us going through your process of the thing that you're offering.
So College Sharks is a do-it-yourself. So we drop bite-sized chunks of really exciting video content each month, so you know what to do and when to do it. We're not going to overwhelm you with stuff that's not due until September. We'll give you a 2-year timeline. We have a junior and a senior year monthly platform. For you guys, you're going to want to do the summer sprint, which I'm just going to put you into after we talk today, which is going to get Levi up and ready to then join our monthly. So it's do it yourself. It has a workbook. The workbook will become your application by the end of it. And then we have a parent College Sharks group. So you get any of your questions answered in 24 hours. And we do a quarterly live where you can ask questions and we tell you where you need to be right now. It's called a roundup.
Okay.
So basically, why did I do this? Well, A, I have to duplicate myself because I can only manage so many one-on-one. And B, the sideline banter that parents say back and forth, like just on the lacrosse field, is so wrong that I wanted people to have a place where they were getting the facts and the real deal. So much information that other parents give to other parents because they had one kid go through isn't right.
Oh, that's, and I can appreciate that.
So it's collegesharks.com and you just go to the free trial.
Okay.
Check it out for 14 days. If you like our style and you think you can learn from it, rock on.
Awesome.
If not, that's okay. At least you got to look in there and see some things and download the workbook, and that's free. And if you follow me on any of my social media, I just give out a lot of free reminders and information and stuff. So you're not just out there floundering, because so many people are out there floundering, and you don't need to pay full price for college.
Yeah, I totally believe you, because like thinking about it, to me, I don't want to use the word overwhelm because I think a lot of people use that a lot, but it is a lot. And like going back to my first statement, it's a really big decision. Like it sets the trajectory of your life. I mean, picking the college could be where you found your spouse in the future. Like there's so many things that are important about getting this part right. And, like you said, their frontal lobes are not fully developed. So as parents, we obviously want to be filling in the lobe. And I think that's important. As we wrap up, Lee, is there anything I didn't ask you that I should have, or anything else you'd like to share with the guys?
I just want to share that, private schools have way more money to give, way more bandwidth to discount tuition. So don't get afraid from their sticker price. They have a lot of ability to come down. So they're going to start at a higher price and they're going to give more away. State schools are strapped, but that's usually going to be your best deal. And I'm here to answer any questions. College Sharks are here for you. We love it and we love getting feedback. And worst case, just join our College Sharks group and you'll just learn, you'll learn through osmosis. But I want everybody to know you don't have to go to college to be successful, but if you're going to go to college, get in and out in 4 years and put it to work.
Awesome, Lee. Well, thank you very much. Guys, if you've enjoyed this podcast, leave me a review. I'd love to see what that says. Again, my name is Danny Dumas, and this is the Earn Your Title podcast, and I'll talk to you later.